Radio play-by-play voice of the Bulls, Jim Louk, who joined the program last year ahead of that matchup in Provo. Jim, great to have you back on the program.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
This is a fun matchup because there's been a couple of games, obviously, here recently. 2019 there, Jaron Hall's first starting black quarterback in BYU history in that storyline. UCF wins that. BYU and South Florida play last year in Provo, and BYU wins that, but a weird game. That's a one score at the end. Baylor Romney's the starter there. What are some of the storylines you're looking at going into this one, since we do have some familiarity with the two schools from the past couple of seasons?
Well, I think South Florida is a little bit of a hard read going in because there are a lot of new players. There are two new coordinators. The offensive and defensive coordinators will be calling their first games. And the head coach, Jeff Scott's in his third season now, and that's always kind of the magical year where a head coach now has all his players, all his coaches in place. And a lot of times that third year will fall into place for a head coach. And of course, South Florida fans are hoping that's the case. They're going to be a lot better, I think, than they were last year. The question is how much and how soon. They have a really, really tough schedule, not only tomorrow, but after that, they have an FCS team coming up in week 2. But following that, they go to Florida, and then they go to Louisville. So they're going to get tested very early, and we'll see how it starts for them tomorrow.
For BYU fans, the hope is Florida is at least 1-0 after this week against Utah. Jim, let's talk about Gary Bohannon. Some familiarity, obviously, with BYU fans, having played Baylor last year. Gary had a decent game in that one. They didn't need him to throw the ball a ton because Baylor ran for 309 yards. So now perhaps Gary might be asked to do a little more, although Jaron Mangum is a beast with 15 touchdowns last year. What do you see from Gary that gives you hope that this offense will be different?
You know, he's an interesting case. He came in late and kind of out of the blue a little bit. USF was not really in the market for another quarterback. They had Timmy McClain, who played in Provo last year and was a true freshman and had some really great moments, and it really looked like he would probably be the guy here for the next couple of years. But the opportunity to bring Bohannon in for a visit presented itself. One thing led to another, and now a guy who did not play in the spring game, was not here in all of spring, has taken over. His teammates love him. He's definitely a strong leader, which is a big part of what he brings to the table here. And Bulls fans are really excited about him coming in and taking over this offense, an offense that should be quite a bit different under the new offensive coordinator, Travis Trickett.
Let's talk about these 13 Power 5 transfers that I think I've mentioned 4 times up to this point in the show in 22 minutes. Which of these transfers do you feel like will have the biggest impact?
I would probably say to watch the defensive line. The failure to get pressure on the quarterback last year by South Florida was really the core of most of their difficulties in 2021. They didn't stop the run very well. That put pressure on the linebackers, put pressure on the defensive secondary, put pressure on the offense because a lot of times the defense couldn't get off the field on third down. So they really tried to make a move, bringing in some new faces on the defensive line. The new defensive coordinator, Bob Shoop, is a little bit more inclined to blitz from multiple positions. And I think that will make a big difference. But when you look at the players coming in, there's new guys at almost every position that should be helping. But the key position, I think, is going to be the defensive line.
Shoop certainly got a tremendous resume. His LinkedIn looks amazing. It'll be interesting to see what kind of impact he has. With a group, Jim, that returns 9 starters, you add some of those guys. How do you think they match up against the BYU offense that comes back as one of the top 15 in the country from last year?
I think they've got a chance to match up reasonably well. One of the other characteristics of this team this year is much better depth, and that's going to be really important as well. last year, the game in Provo was not the normal USF game, getting down big early and then coming back. What was more frequent for USF was being right there at the end of the game, either with a lead or within striking distance, and not being able to get over the top at the end of the game. Part of that was guys were playing 70, 75, maybe 80 snaps per game, and they just wore down in the fourth quarter. They've got so much better depth at virtually every position this year. I think they can match up a little bit better. They'll go with 2 linebackers and 5 in the defensive secondary most of the game. But the big thing is going to be, again, stopping the run, pressure on the quarterback. They've got a lot of vets in the defensive secondary where I think they can really make some plays, but they've got to have help from the front seven.
We're talking to Jim Louk, radio play-by-play for the USF Bulls here on BYU Sports Nation on a game day eve. For the BYU fans watching on TV, and then most certainly the ones that will be at Raymond James Stadium, what do you recommend nearby the stadium, in the stadium, that they need to make sure they check out?
Well, it's a great facility, a home of the Buccaneers and a home of many Super Bowls. So one of the main roads right next to it is Dale Mabry Highway, and every restaurant you can imagine is up and down the line there. A lot of tailgating early on. It's going to be warm. Expect not only warm temperatures, but probably the occasional afternoon rainstorm too. Hopefully we won't have any thunder and lightning, but there's a lot to do directly around the stadium. It's a great area. Bulls have played at Raymond James and its predecessor, the original Tampa Stadium, since their inception. They're hoping to move to an on-campus facility in the next 3 or 4 years, but right now Raymond James has been a big advantage to them in recruiting and playing conditions throughout the years.
Jim, if BYU fans want a creamsicle Buccaneers jersey of Steve Young, do you think they can find one in Tampa?
I think that would be a project. This is as great as Steve was here. This is Bradyville.
Yes, it is.
You can't walk 3 steps without finding a Tom Brady jersey for sale. But I remember I was a young reporter when Steve was here. It was really before his greatest years in San Francisco, but he was a terrific quarterback. But I'm telling you, Tom Brady rules this town right now.
What a boon to get Tom Brady and obviously a Super Bowl title, which has been amazing, and to get him back after the retirement. You know, just a brief respite in the offseason there. What sticks out about BYU to you as a team that you saw in person last year, a team that won 10 games and is coming in ranked in the top 25 in the preseason poll in the AP?
Well, size, strength, and speed, I think, those are rare combinations. You play some teams that have a couple of those, but maybe not all 3 of them. The other thing, and both USF coordinators have talked about this in their media avails this week, is how unconventional BYU is. And Bob Shoop said, he called some of the things they do offensively random. It's not random in BYU's planning. Obviously, they're doing everything for a reason, and it's well thought out. But when you're trying to defend against them, they'll do something, and you'll look at that and say, well, I didn't think they'd do that out of that formation, or they wouldn't do that now or something. So they're a very to prepare for. It helps USF, obviously, that the 2 teams saw each other last year. Also, it's week 1, so you got a little bit of extra time to get ready. But the word I kept hearing from a lot of the coaches this year at USF in describing BYU is unconventional, hard to plan for.
We're talking to Jim Louk, the radio voice of the USF Bulls on BYU Sports Nation. Certainly BYU was on this end of the spectrum in 2011 when Utah went to the Pac-12, hoping that it had its own P5 invite. That did not come until last year and applies next year. Now USF's in a similar situation with rival UCF, who will join the Big 12 with BYU. What's the hope for USF football in the future, and what's that landscape look like?
I think there's always hope in the college football landscape because anybody that says the realignment is over forever is probably wrong. Who knows when, who knows where, but it's going to change again. And I think USF is doing a good job trying to get ready for that. They are working hard on facilities. They have a brand new multi-million-dollar indoor practice facility that will be opening in a couple of weeks. Over the years, there's been lots of stops and starts about a possible on-campus stadium. This push feels a little different. They've got a lot of the right things in place. I think it's going to happen this time. So facilities are definitely a big part of it. Fan base, trying to grow that is important. And then the biggest thing, perhaps out of all of them, starts tomorrow. Got to win some football games. You know, USF has a great history for such a young program, being nationally ranked multiple times, and some of the great victories in their past, beating Notre Dame and Auburn and Clemson. But not much of that has happened in the last couple of years. So in order to position themselves, they've got to get back to where they want to be on the playing field as well. And I think the mindset here in Tampa and around USF is, let's not worry about other people. Let's get our house in order. Let's get ready, because there's going to be another round of this sometime, and we better make sure we present the best available package at that time.
Well, Jim, we appreciate the time. Best of luck on the call tomorrow on the radio, and we look forward to the season opener with BYU in South Florida.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Jim